exclusive, man.
Maserati is not starting no trouble.
I ain't doing.
I'm trying to glorify that, though.
Glorify what?
Being locked up.
Thing.
When I say it, it's like, that's a dumb out thing.
Oh, dumb out. Okay.
You hear like Yo G's, all that stuff in Queens. That's from mine.
He's a cop. You love a cop, he's a fool. Only fan Big Boss right now for
SUV with numerous bullets as it waited at a stop sign. Detectives say the intended target, Jamal Green, a.k.a. Maserati, once part of the Group G unit, was fatally shot once in the torso. He staggered out of the car and then fell dead in a nearby car. Were also wounded, two 22-year-old men. One shot.
When you hear the name Maserati Fox, you're not just talking about some rapper who rolled with 50 Cent. This was a man whose name carried serious weight in Queens. His rep in the streets was already stamped long before people ever saw him posted up next to G Unit. This was somebody who went face to face with Jimmy Henchman in broad daylight, survived being hit more than 20 times, and still walked away to become one of 50's most feared right-hand men. Fox was the real deal, and his story proves it. Jamal Green, better known as Maserati Fox, was born and raised in Queens, straight out of South Jamaica, from the tough West Side Merrick blocks, the same area that shaped 50 Cent. They weren't just industry associates, they were childhood friends, linked long before the fame and the rap money. Their paths crossed early, and from then on, Fox's name became cemented into that same legacy. And the name Fox wasn't some flashy alias cooked up in the studio, it was earned. Story goes, two guys once tried to test him for his chain, but only one made it out the situation. The other left with what's known as a $150, a brutal slice across the face that needed 150 stitches to close. That kind of scar doesn't just mark skin, it brands your reputation forever. And that's exactly how Fox got his name. The Maserati part? That came later, and it came from 50 himself. During a studio session with Stack Bundles, 50 cracked a line. Maserati Fox, fresh out the body shop. And just like that, it stuck. Fox ran with it and the name became official. But Fox wasn't just about a name. He lived the lifestyle that most rappers only rhymed about. There was something in his presence that made people uneasy because he never hid from what he'd been through. In one interview, when asked if he thought serving time was something to glorify, Fox snapped back with, "Who wouldn't?" That answer alone showed the mindset he carried. And people around him knew he wasn't just muscle, he was sharp. Tony Yayo even called him a strategist, even a master manipulator. Fox had a way of taking regular people and turning them into something bigger, into loyal soldiers ready to ride. He saw angles others couldn't, and he knew exactly how to move pieces across the board. When it came to G Unit, Fox's role wasn't the same as everybody else's. He was playing a deeper game. Fox wasn't just another affiliate hanging around, he was the living, breathing reminder of where G Unit really came from. He officially signed with 50 in 2007, but just a year later he was gone, never even dropping a full album under the label. Still, his impact was already felt heavy around 2005. Before that deal, Fox had already launched his own movement, G Unit Dumb Out. He pushed it as both a crew and a label, dropping mixtapes, stamping the brand, and even taking it down south when most New York artists weren't daring to branch out like that. Fox described it as pretty thug style, but blow you out slug style, meaning he had charisma, but when it came down to it, he wasn't scared to get aggressive. That balance made him one of the most feared names linked to G Unit. And when you bring up the infamous G Unit versus Jimmy Henchman feud, the one that spiraled into one of the deadliest street clashes in hip-hop history, Maserati Fox wasn't sitting on the sidelines. He was right in the middle of it, moving as a frontline soldier for 50. One of the wildest, most legendary moments from that beef went down inside the Apollo Theater in Harlem. During the peak of that war, Fox actually confronted Jimmy Henchman inside the venue. Tony Yayo, who was right there, told the story himself. Henchman and his crew had just cleared the metal detectors and were heading toward the bar when Yayo's side followed close behind. That's when Fox made his move, pulling out the strap, turning to Yayo, and saying he was ready. All he needed was the word, and he was prepared to go at Henchman and his crew right there in the Apollo. Pulling a gun on one of the most powerful execs in the game right in front of everyone was Fox making a statement. He didn't care about consequences. That was the energy that defined Maserati Fox, but the fallout didn't take long. The consequences came quick and heavy. Jimmy Henchman's crew, instead of sparking chaos inside the venue, chose to walk away that night, avoiding what could have turned into a total disaster. But that didn't mean it was over. Just days later, the retaliation came hard. Tony Yayo's Bentley was riddled with bullets. a clear message from Henchman's camp that Fox's bold move wasn't going unanswered. And that wasn't the only time Fox's presence stopped G-Unit from catching a major loss. Take the story involving Hot Rod, one of the rappers signed to G-Unit back then. Hot Rod was filming a video in Brooklyn, completely unaware he was standing in dangerous territory during the peak of the G-Unit verses. Henchman wore. Mid-shoot, he got a call from Fox, who told him straight up he wasn't safe out there. Next thing you know, Fox pulled up deep. Convoy after convoy of cars rolling in like a scene out of a movie. They shut the whole block down, scooped Hot Rod out, and made sure nothing happened to him. That was Fox, bold, calculated, and never shy about confrontation. And when it came to speaking his mind, Fox didn't hold back. If he had an issue, you were going to hear it. Whether in interviews, on records, or straight in the streets. During 50 Cent's beef with Rick Ross, Fox jumped straight into the fire, sending disses at Ross and even Queens rapper Young Dice. He didn't hesitate to throw shots when he felt like it. Then there was Domination, another Queens figure Fox had tension with. Things got so heated that when they finally sat down to squash it, both sides came in strapped, ready in case it went left. And then you had Lord Tariq. That back and forth turned into a full-on exchange of diss tracks. Fox wasn't ducking smoke from anybody. If something needed to be said, he said it, no matter who got offended. Another wild example was a $1 million deal that almost happened, brokered by 50 Cent and Prodigy from Mobb Deep. The opportunity came through a company that specialized in distributing music across multiple languages worldwide. On paper, it was huge. But Fox, frustrated with constant delays and feeling like he wasn't being taken seriously, decided to handle it the only way he knew, through sheer intimidation. He showed up at the company's building with nearly 100 men deep, shutting the block down, yelling about how he hadn't been paid. The scene got so chaotic that police were eventually called in. Charges ended up being pressed, and just like that, the deal was gone. That $1 million opportunity evaporated overnight, leaving Fox with nothing but more controversy attached to his name. Not all of Fox's wild stories were about beef or business. Some were straight-up adventures. Around 50 Cent's mansion, there was always action, big cars, flashy bikes, and non-stop noise. Fox loved the motorbikes as much as anyone, but his time on two wheels didn't always end smooth. One crash left him with a serious foot injury that slowed him down for a minute. But you can't tell the story of Maserati Fox without digging into the part most rappers only pretend to have, a real criminal history. For Fox, it wasn't just a dusty rap sheet. It was a record filled with violence, leadership, and street confrontations that later turned into hood legends. And that story stretched way back, long before a G-Unit chain ever touched his neck. We've got to rewind to July 7th, 1998, in the heart of Jamaica, Queens, outside the Baisley Park houses. On that night, Fox got into an argument that escalated fast, setting off one of the darkest chapters of his life. It all started inside a cab. Lloyd, a local taxi driver who had given Fox rides before, picked him up along with 3 other men. Fox slid into the front seat while his crew filled the back. At first, the ride seemed ordinary, but then Fox began directing Lloyd to make stops. First at 169th and Fox Boulevard, then again at Guy Brewer and Foch. These weren't random detours. Fox clearly had a purpose. At one of those stops, he hopped out of the cab to confront a group of guys. Witnesses later described him gesturing aggressively, locked in a heated argument with one man in particular. When Fox climbed back into the taxi, his whole demeanor had shifted. The night was far from over. That night, in 1998, spiraled out of control fast. Fox was furious after a heated argument and told his crew he felt disrespected. Moments later, 2 of his associates jumped out of the cab and chaos broke loose as shots rang through the night. The taxi driver Lloyd ducked for cover as panic spread. Then the 2 men came rushing back, weapons still out, and forced him to drive off in a frenzy. The aftermath was devastating. Lives were lost, families were broken, and Fox's name was dragged deep into the storm. Witnesses later claimed they saw Fox giving orders during the chaos, but in court things played out differently. He was never convicted of murder, even with his name tied to testimony. Instead, years later in 2001, he was convicted of weapon possession connected to that night and served 4 years behind bars. For many, it looked like Fox had slipped through the cracks of justice. But the stain of that 1998 incident followed him forever, a dark shadow over his legacy. Here's the thing about Maserati Fox. Prison wasn't a break from the streets, it was an evolution. Every stint behind bars only sharpened him, connected him deeper, and leveled up his reputation. During his federal stretch from 2003 to 2004, Fox ended up locked in with none other than Peter Pistol Pete Rolak, the feared leader of the S-Money murder set, one of the most ruthless blood factions in New York. Inside those walls, Pete opened up about betrayal and cracks forming in his empire, and Fox soaked it all in. By the time he hit the streets again, again, Fox wasn't just rolling with his old crew. He had pledged allegiance to S-Money Murder, officially repping the set inside MDC Brooklyn. That move tied him directly into one of the heaviest criminal circles in the city. But even with all that, Fox's most notorious trait wasn't just his ties, it was his survival. They didn't call him Fox for nothing. According to Tony Yayo, it wasn't just about being slick. It was because people tried to take him out countless times, and somehow he always slipped away, almost like he was untouchable. And that 21 bullet story, it wasn't just rap folklore. It really happened. One time, a man who owed him $10,000 set him up, luring him into a car and then unloading shots instead of paying the debt. Fox took multiple bullets, bleeding out but refusing to die. Against all odds, he survived again, adding another chapter to the legend of the man who just wouldn't go down. Fox's survival stories felt like scenes straight out of a movie. In one case, he fought back against an attacker, even wrestling a gun away while shots were still going off, and somehow he walked away. He later claimed he'd been hit 12 times in one incident and survived another ambush in 2005, fresh out of prison, during a dice game gone wrong. Scarred but still breathing, Fox's legend grew even bigger. But that violent lifestyle came with a heavy cost, not just for him, but for those close to him. In 2010, his close friend and affiliate Gregory G. Baby Brown was killed after headlining a fabulous concert in Queens. Reports claimed chaos broke out and G. Baby lost his life, a case that was never solved. Then in May 2013, tragedy hit even closer to home. While Fox was locked up on an assault charge, his 14-year-old stepdaughter, Daja Robinson, was riding home from a Sweet 16 party, sitting on a city bus like any normal kid, when a stray bullet struck her and ended her life. She had nothing to do with the streets, but was still taken in the crossfire of a feud that had nothing to do with her. The loss rocked Fox even behind bars. His longtime friend 50 Cent stepped up, making sure her funeral was honored properly, paying for the horse and carriage that carried her casket. "I didn't forget where I came from," 50 said. "I came through for baby girl. She was innocent and didn't deserve to die like that." While serving his last prison stretch in 2013, Fox even tried channeling his story into something more reflective. He wrote a novel called The Game Don't Change, a gritty street-lit piece based on Queens hustling and survival. For one of the first times, people saw Fox outside the lens of violence, an attempt to turn scars into art. Then, on December 20th, 2013, Fox walked out of prison after 2 years for attempted assault. Back in Queens, staying with his girlfriend, he was just a short walk from the block where his story began. In a jailhouse interview before his release, he even sounded optimistic, almost hungry for a new start. "I'm ready to get the money and get the business. Now I'm ready." For once, it seemed like Fox was finally turning the corner, but the streets had other plans. On January 3rd, 2014, barely 2 weeks into his freedom, Fox's past caught up with him. Around 4 p.m. that Friday, he was riding in a Nissan SUV with 3 others at the corner of Farmers Boulevard and 133rd Avenue in Queens. The car stopped at a sign, and that's when it happened. A gunman dressed head to toe in black pulled up and opened fire. The SUV was hit and Fox was struck in the chest. Mortally wounded, he stumbled out onto the cold, snow-covered sidewalk and collapsed. That's where Maserati Fox, the man who had survived so many attempts on his life, finally took his last breath. The others in the SUV weren't spared either. A young man was left in critical condition, another was shot in the arm, and a woman believed to be Fox's daughter was grazed by a bullet. It was broad daylight mayhem. And to many, the motive felt tied all the way back to the 1998 Curtis Scott case. Weeks later, police arrested Curtis Scott's brother Jamal and charged him with murder and attempted murder. On paper, it looked like justice had finally arrived, but in 2016, the case collapsed after the key witness admitted her testimony was coerced. Jamal Scott walked free after 2 years in prison, and Fox's murder remains officially unsolved to this day. Maserati Fox's life ended at just 42 years old, but his presence never faded. He was G Unit's most feared street soldier, a man whose real life played out like a crime novel. His story is still whispered in Queens, retold in interviews, and etched into hip-hop history. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.